Okay, so if you're going to market the Plymouth colony, you might say that in Jamestown there are no women, so that might be a reason to go to Plymouth. And what else did I say? They were a little more organized. Remember the Mayflower Compact, meaning that everybody over the age of 18 gets a say. Their leadership was a little bit more organized, it seemed like, in Jamestown. But probably the biggest is the appearance of Samoset and Squanto. So those of you that are listening to this, if you go to your William Bradford and John Smith journal, page 10 in your notebook, Samoset spoke English, but it was Squanto who was more of an advisor, a guide, a translator, a guide, and an advisor. And Disney even made a movie about his contributions to the Puritan colony. So if you were to market, Plymouth does seem a little bit like a better colony to go to than Jamestown. On the back of page 10, we were taking notes about Puritan philosophy, and we're going to keep that going here. Okay, and so if you remember, we talked about how the Puritans were very pessimistic. They had a negative outlook on life. They saw the glass half empty. And I believe we also got to the idea that they valued morality. Only the chosen go to heaven. And the idea of you needed to make sure that you looked like you were doing moral actions. And the reason that I have the star there is if you remember from elementary school, when you did something good, you got the star by your name. But if you were naughty, you got a check. Did you get what? Oh, you got an X? We used to get check marks. So if you got a little check mark behind your name, it meant you were naughty. So that's kind of the reason that I have the check mark there, is because the idea that God is omnipotent and wrathful, and kind of this idea that God is all powerful, and when he does, and they thought of God as a male, and when he did kind of interact with his human subjects, he was always angry. Okay. And that was their perception of God, is that he was an all-powerful, angry God. And so, for example, in our household, with Craig being sick, the Puritans would look at that as, well, Craig must have done something, okay? And this is his punishment. So if you had a string of bad luck, it was because you were faithful. It was because you were less than what God wanted you to be. If you were blessed, it was because you were acting in a proper way. And we all know that good people have bad things happen to them, but they didn't take that into account. They didn't take grace into account. Now the diamond probably makes again, all of my symbols are supposed to make sense to help us remember their Puritan philosophy. And we know with a lot of pressure and stuff, coal is made into diamonds. And so the whole concept that hard work are the paths to God's grace. So kind of like the pressure of a coal will make a diamond. So the harder you work, the more God likes it. Okay? And I want us to think about that in relation to the building of the colony. They needed to have everybody pitch in. They needed everybody to work really, really hard. And so what better way to make sure everybody works by tying it to your salvation? This is called the Puritan work ethic. Okay? And if you could write that down right underneath this, the Puritan work ethic. This is what separates Americans from other parts of the world. We're a working fool. We are. My dad, still to this day at 75, still thinks he's a failure if he doesn't go out and put a full day's work. That is just being lazy. And my response is, Dad, you're 75. Yeah, but I'm getting lazy. I only work till 7 o'clock tonight. I said, what time did you start? 4 a.m. Okay. That is the Puritan work ethic. And that is also why we treat people in poverty the way we do as well. Because Puritans believed that if you were poor, it was because you weren't working hard. And so we have a very negative view of poverty in this country because of the Puritans. Okay. Next quality is the half circle. Okay. And the half circle is like a full circle, kind of means a community. Okay. and that the community, I should probably have that as a full circle, but I don't know why I have a half circle there, is that the community needs are more important than the individuals. Okay? This is going to flip in about the 1850s, okay, where we're going to become an individualistic society. But at the beginning of our country, we had to think about community first. Because if we didn't go at things together, what would happen? If we didn't come together as a community in 1620, what would happen? They wouldn't have survived. So they had community buildings. They had, you know, we will build Jenna's house first, and then we will move on and build Kyle's house. If you have any encounters with like the Amish, that is very much a part of the Amish culture even yet today. Okay, community first, then the individual. Again, that's going to flip about the 50s? Yeah, about 1830s, 1840s. Okay. Last one is a little black square which represents the Bible. Everything had to revolve around the Bible. So we are actually going to use these things, and we're going to look at the kids' school books, and you will be able to align those school books with these philosophies. So you're going to see like their school books regularly talked about people going to hell, regularly talked about God punishing them, regularly talked about the omnipotence of God, okay? Because that was a big part of who they were, okay? So those of you that are watching online, I'm hoping that this will show up for you. I'm thinking it will. Not sure where the sound went. Okay. I don't really show kids' stuff very often, like class projects, but you'll see that this is Honors 3, where this, whatever this assignment was for whatever teacher, this is a really well done one, and so that's why I show it. I'm not quite sure where the sound is. The sound is right there, so maybe there is no sound. Oh, there it is. Many of the pictures that you're going to see are trumpets. So there's the philosophy, the study of the Bible. Another big thing is education. So you're sitting here because of the Puritans. So slap over, I guess. Okay. This was new. They did not believe that you needed a priest to communicate with God. That's a huge movement. Simplicity is a huge part of their qualities as well. So all of the fanciness that you saw in England, they got rid of. And they did not have traditional holidays, but they did have elaborate things like tombstones. Okay? And everything was very black and white. So people were punished for all kinds of things. They had a huge impact on our culture, and we can still feel the results of that today. Right? So like I said, I don't normally show programs from students, but that one was very well done. Okay? So you read an article for today on Puritan law and culture, and so I'm going to have you take out your notes for that, which was page 15, and I'm going to have you turn to Moodle and take the check that is over that. Okay? Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to need a few minutes. I know. All right, everybody's there. So I handed out 2 pieces of paper. One's the New England Primer and one's the vocabulary words. Because we had so many people gone from this section today, we're going to start the vocabulary words on Wednesday. That gets us off a little bit, but it's just the way it is. And so we will have our quiz the next Tuesday, just because I like to do it on the days that we have class for three times in a week. The other one, the New England Primer, we're going to get to. But what we're going to do is we're going to take those philosophies and apply it to it. And normally I assign that at homework, but the more and more I learn about your generation, the more I realize that you guys don't know how to read cursive. And that's kind of a tough font. So we'll kind of go through that together in class. So Anne Bradstreet, which is page 14 in your notebook, we dealt with her first story, To My Dear and Loving Husband. Her second poem is the back page, called Upon the Burning of This House. And this is a poem that she wrote about the fact that her house burned to the ground. Okay? What I want you to do is to read through that poem. It's a narrative poem. It's not a tough poem. And read through it. And then on Google Classroom, I want you to write a press release. What would they say if that was on the news that night? And so it might start out with, last night, a house in the neighborhood burned completely to the ground. The Bradstreets, da-da-da-da-da. So you're going to tell me the who, the what, the why, how it happened. And then also don't forget that you want to quote from the witness, and that would be Anne Bradstreet. So according to the lady of the house, she said, and pick out a quote. We're talking maybe 5 to 6 sentences that you would put on a Google Doc and then turn in at Google Classroom. Does anybody have any questions? So press release for Upon the Burning of This House. All right. Thanks for putting up with me redoing some stuff so the kids that aren't here could hear. So.